We're raw dogging it. Who turned dog into a verb, for God's sake? Hello. I thought I'd have a couple of beers, well, 2, and talk about some things that annoy me, and we're going to get a massive raid, so had I planned this, there was no chance. But Crucible raid, epic. I miss debating, and I hope that goes back, that comes back on the Crucible, because that's going to be fun. Not that it doesn't happen, it's just a lot rarer, but Andrew is doing a hell of a job, as is Rachel, so who am I to complain? Right. Let's let the people trickle in a bit. Cheers, živeli, na zdrowie, stinijemaš, ano santé, etc. All those fun things. Right, so it's Bears with the Lads today. This won't be a terribly long stream because I will end it once DPH starts, which would be midnight for me, or shortly in 1.5 hours. For the Great Flood, yes, we're still in the antediluvian period of this stream. Geezers. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. That's the plan for now. Hello, Crucible crew. God, I'm going to get the biggest audience on an impromptu stream, which is a bit embarrassing, but I'm not going to complain. Hello. I'm going to watch for the number of viewers and say hello for every one of you. Hello, Crucible crew. I was planning on streaming with Christ Almighty for 500 viewers. The honorary redneck. I'm not an honorary redneck. I'm actually quite rednecky. You just see me as more erudite due to the way I speak English. My favorite thing is when I sent a picture to Jim Bob. Whoops, we've already got super chats. John Smith for $5 says, "Hi, we at the Crucible have been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty." I didn't know. I should have read that in an Indian accent. Tony Rules sends in $5 and doesn't say anything. I can get a baseball cap if it would help you a lot. A massive $100 super chat from Noah R. And he says, "Shut up and take my money." Thank you very much, Noah R. Highly appreciated. That will keep me drinking for at least 3 days. Robert Demeter sends in $10 and doesn't say anything. Thank you. Oh Christ, I can't even keep up with the super chats. Thank you, Dean Lem, 2 for $5, who says in Posh2 stream. Thank you. Rachel is here. Hello, Rachel. I've seen you've been discussing a lot of church proper behavior on Twitter with people, and it's been fun to interact with. Josh Brooks sends in $20. Thank you so much. It says, "You have a collect call from the Crucible crew. Would you like to accept?" Yes. Christ, I'm not keeping up well. David Matthews for $5. Thank you very much. Says, "Here's some grift because the Crucible told me to." the patriarch of the orthosphere, it seems. Hello, Slowboy Whiteboard. Shares, who has renamed himself for unknown reasons. I don't know what you're hiding. For 50 Swedish kroner, says, go posh, thank you, Chair. The Raging Tomato says, for $5, thank you. Girls aren't funny, so I've got nothing. Why did I say nothing? See, I get raided by Andrew and I start talking like an Irishman, which is fairly embarrassing. So, hello, everyone. At least we're easing you into DPH stream because he is very prim and proper, and I drink and smoke. So it's not that harsh a transition from Andrew to DPH. I love the stash. I appreciate the super chat. I don't appreciate the lying. Came from the Crucibles. Thank you. Rachel Wilson with a $20 super sticker. Can you show that? Yes, I can. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Oops. Christ. I'm going to spend the entire thing reading super chats, and I won't be complaining, but I want to complain. That's the problem. I want to complain about people on the internet. Torah Mehta, you've won a lot of money. The crew just need your SSN and CC info and we'll have it straight to you. In Serbia, we just have, we cut in numbers. So when they scar, you have Angel Berber for $5, thank you. To our favorite theologian, Goat Herder from the Crucible crew. Mine is King David, but okay. All right, the Raging Tomato for $5 again says, just want to hear you say tomato again. You got two. That's, and thank you. Christ, you people are generous on a Sunday. Dano, for $5, thank you, Dano. Have another drink. I need to be properly eased into DPH. But if I have too many drinks, I'm going to make a steeper transition from me to DPH and probably have this channel banned. Josh Brooks for $50, thank you. First time ever on your channel. So what is your largest point of argument you receive from most people? What questions are asked of you that must be discussed through discourse? I mostly still interact with Protestants, and my point is linguistics. So the points I have to deal with most pertain to appeal to obviousness, this idea of perspicuity of scriptures. So I have to ease people into understanding linguistic theory, and I'll have to do a stream on that. I did talk about it with on J Dyer stream, so you can look up him interviewing me, and I did one with DPH. So that's what I mostly have to talk to. I've been interacting with some today on Twitter. So again, more on that once I go through the super chats, because I don't know what will happen when I stop. I have zero technical expertise on these matters. Marley for $10. Thank you, Marley. Those look like some serious headphones. God damn it. I'm going to be bullied for headphones for my entire YouTube career. And the worst part is I can't buy regular ones, because then everyone will start commenting on, well, why are they regular now? I used to have worse ones, blue ones that would shine, but they broke. The Briar Wolf for $20. Thank you very much. Watch out for those flying super chats. Okay. I just want to say they calm down, and another one jumps in. The Raging Tomato. Okay, I'm done. Lol, thank you. Whispers, tomato. All right. I think we can start with something. I'm going to take a swig. All these tomato talks making me thirsty. Christ. Charles Lehner. Is it Lehner? Are you German? Because I've been looking for a German or an Austrian to evaluate my Steiermarkische dialect. People may not know this, but Mike Hunt is a hairy fella. Oh, those don't work on me. My pronunciation is too academic. So I do say Mike Hunt. But I appreciate, I love the compilations of those. So Krutter says I'm German. Krutter. So maybe at the end I sing an Austrian song and you will start hating me. So if you stick around, that's a what do you call it? Cliffhanger. If there ever was one, that's going to sustain people. People asking what's up in Serbia land. A massive decrease in temperature, not massive, I shouldn't say massive, but 15 degrees Celsius and a lot of wind. So yeah. Honorary German. Are you a Jewish doctor by any chance? John Smith for $5 says, I ain't the gay, but the accent got me feeling things. I didn't. That was an unintentionally good moment to switch the accent. Right. And here he is, the Viking leader himself. Look, Posh, look now, you don't have to eat United Nations garbage for dinner tonight for dinner. I would only ever be expected to be poisoned by any Western institution, so thank you for the heads up. I'll stick to the salted weasel. Right, so to start the point, in the last couple of days, and especially today, I've interacted with a few accounts on Twitter, I've seen some videos on YouTube that have prompted me to do this, because I'm truly annoyed on all sides of any political, religious, or whatever type of spectrum, that we have so many people who adopt beliefs tactically. What I mean by that is, I'll give you an Orthodox example of this. We Orthodox believe evil has no ontological self-subsistence. It is a deviation, a perversion, or a lack of good. When we talk about human beings, we say a movement of the will away from God. So that does not mean that is how we swat away doubts or concerns about theodicy. That's not the point. The point of adopting a position isn't to swat away doubts or to try to convince someone who is having those doubts, especially if they are prohibitive to that person adopting orthodoxy or Christianity in general. No, it's our actual position, which means that if we encounter a type of evil, we have to think about, what is this a perversion of? And I said, simping is a perversion of courtship. It is extremely low. It is extremely debased and debasing. But it is a perversion of something good, right? It's a perversion of, I can provide for you, I care for you, and turning it into, well, here's a tenner, show some side boob. That's how I tend to encapsulate the whole thing. Nadim Haddad, our great father of the white race, Yaqub, for £2 says, come on, Sava, we all know your accent is fake. All accents are fake, except Appalachian. So I'm not used to not being able to catch up with the chat, so sorry. But back to our topic. So that's how we have to approach things. Whatever type of evil you see, think about, what is this a perversion of, a lack of, a degraded form of, and don't just keep it for talking about, well, if God is good and all powerful, how is there evil in the world, right? Why did he allow Yakub to make white people? Again, shout out to Yakub from the chat as well. But then we move on to other topics or other perspectives. One massive one is obviously predeterminism, because I argue a lot with prots on Twitter when I'm in a not particularly good mood, which is always, with very rare exceptions. And you try to get them to say, okay, we are, because to connect it to the previous stream, I talked about slop posting. So they just keep, just machine gunning this low quality, low info slogans, pandering, useless, pestilential, just dribble, and expect people to react to it. And occasionally it works on me. But one I saw today, maybe it was yesterday, I don't know anymore, said that we have to realize we can never please God. Only Christ can, and we are wretches, we are so on and so forth. One famous formulation of it is, if I was even 0.0000001% responsible for my own salvation, I would go to hell. Right, so it's this self-debasing, which I realize stems from the fact that they don't believe in a loving God. And even worse, they believe in a non-loving God who's schizophrenic on multiple levels. So in my tweet, I said basically there are three I can, as far as, at least for now, discern. One is, they believe that God's just wrath is battling his mercy somehow. Now, this is a thing in certain groups of Sunni Muslims. They believe that these attributes of Allah, battle each other. In the Quran says that had Adam not sinned, he would have been destroyed and replaced with someone who would have sinned, only then to seek mercy from Allah and then be granted the mercy. And makes absolutely no sense. And that's why you have certain ideas like, well, it's these attributes of Allah being weighed against each other, so his mercy will prevail against his wrath. That's one of the reasons why I call Calvinism Trinitarian Islam. But back to our Christian alleged teaching of Calvinism. So that's one level of schizophrenia. It's God has attributes within himself that are fighting each other. We as humans do. We want to do the right thing, but I really want to drink tonight. We have these internal battles constantly. But then there's that can't be expected of God. He doesn't have internal quibbles with himself. The second level is they don't believe in free will. So saying we can never please God is having to then tactically reinsert free will so as to say that we aren't acting in a manner pleasing to God, even though we are just, if you want to go with meat puppets or whatever, like meat robots, you hear a lot of this from mostly atheistic determinists. But we are just toys, basically. So God is upset with his toys. But ultimately, he has predetermined whatever we do. So he's upset with himself for programming his toys wrong or something. That's the second level of schizophrenia. And then thirdly, this God doesn't really love us. It's best encapsulated with Luther saying we are like dung covered by the white snow of Christ. Again, this isn't to say that if you read Calvin or Luther, they won't mention God loving. That's not the point. The point isn't them saying it. It's about being consistent with saying it. And they're not. They, especially Calvin, I would say, although I'm more familiar with Calvinism than I am with Lutheranism. So we have these three levels of schizophrenia, which wouldn't have to exist if they simply played their thoughts through and not just tactically add and remove to maintain a narrative. That narrative is found in basically the five solas. The shortened version is salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. Right. Last stream, I talked about how you say, okay, so I don't need to believe in the Holy Spirit because it's only in Christ alone. It's not salvific. It doesn't pertain to salvation whether you believe in the Trinity. And that's where these things fall apart, and why I say this is why we have such low tier thinking. It's all tactical pivoting. Imagine like everything is like a pivot in basketball. A person just standing on one leg and just keeps hopping around in circles, trying to run out the timer, and then the game ends and everyone goes home until you try to interact with other people again. The bigger problem being that they also have this fight internally, and that game doesn't end until it ends. Or you abandon this absolute nonsense of maintaining some fraudulent modernist, crypto Manichaean idea of Christianity known as Protestantism. But that's what I'm talking about. They will introduce and remove this predeterminism as they see fit. They cannot be like Muslims, who are at least, Sunni Muslims specifically, who are at least consistent of saying, yeah, Allah caused Adam to sin. There's a specific hadith. It says Adam and Moses having this debate in the afterlife or something. And Moses is upset with Adam and says, you are the reason we were cast out of the garden. And Adam responds with, how can you blame me for something that Allah had preordained for me for 40 years, I believe, 40 years before he created me. And he ends with, that is how Adam confuted Moses, that is how Adam confuted Moses, that is how Adam confuted Moses. I will again emphasize, repeats it 3 times for no reason whatsoever. But not only is it saying Allah caused it, because you will find some who will say, oh, no, it means he declared that it would happen, he knew it. Well, now, what, he found out 40 years? So 50 years before he created Adam, he didn't know? Is Allah changing? That's one way to criticize it. Secondly, Muhammad is saying that Adam is actually absolved of the sin. He has no responsibility for it because he was preordained by Allah to sin. That's how he confuted Moses. He can't be blamed for it. Moses was wrong to blame him. But our Calvinist friends don't have this out. They don't have the ability to simply say, well, yeah, but then, because they would have to say God creates evil actively. And I know they're going to be people who are going to be quoting, like, I bring about good and I create evil from certain translations. Historically, terms good and evil were used much more commonly for things like natural disasters and war and stuff. You can't just read it as ontological evil, as I said. And this was specifically addressing a very dualist religion who believed that, you have this God does all the good stuff and then his shadow does all the bad stuff. And it's in context, and not just in this interreligious dialogue, so to speak, but also in historical context. John Smith, for an additional $5, thank you, says, how do Orthodox Christians deal with Mark 7:8? Would Jesus say the same thing about their traditions in this sense, or is it different? Oh, Christ, I'm going to have to look it up on let's just go with Mark 7:8. Look up at our Bible Gateway and switch it to King James. I'm not going to read the NIV. I'm not a bloody masochist. King James, King James, King James. I think I know what you're talking about. I'd just rather not miss out on it. So it says, for laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the traditions of men as the washing of pots and cups and many other such like things ye do. Right. So when we talk about traditions of men and lack thereof, traditions, there's a capital T tradition, there's a lowercase t tradition. So there is holy tradition, what we would say is the capital T tradition. That is a continuation of worship. There are smaller traditions. As far as what happens to criticizing the Pharisees, it is sacrificing the capital T tradition for the lowercase t traditions, which we don't do. I was also accused of being a tradition worshiper today on Twitter, so you can congratulate me if you'd like. But no, if you go by, as I would say Protestants do, a modernist, late Middle Age, if not even later, understanding of what grace is, what worship is, what polytheism and monotheism are. These are very modernistic. So if you then start subscribing to a more modern, how shall we say, semantic nuance of a word, you're going to be following traditions of men. Okay, so it's not about doing things that in a modern world seem strange, or what we can't simply collapse into some type of, potluck or whatever would constitute proper or habitual for us. And then we say, oh, this is some weird pagan tradition you're abandoning God for. No. This would have to be addressed additionally on specifics. But no, we don't follow traditions of men in any sense other than we have idiosyncratic aspects of, like in Serbia, we're going to have certain saints. We have put focus on certain events that we see in the light of Christ, like, for example, Hanukkah is going to be something for the Maccabees, and then Protestants will have no problem, saying, well, Christ celebrated Hanukkah, so that's fine. But they basically abandon the idea of God being alive. He's basically like there. He is AFK. As far as these things are concerned, we would say there's no more revelations, but God is alive in his saints. God is alive on earth, present on earth. He is with us until the end of days, etc. So these things live. But things being strange to you does not mean things are vain traditions of men. Right. Pravoslavicon, one of my favorite names on Twitter, for 25, is that Polish? Do I ask this every time you send in super chat? My night shift tonight is going to be Posh, then Kotel, then Andrew, whatever. Hospody, I feel entertained. Well, I'm glad to be of service and help with the night shift. DC Woodworking sends in $3 and says nothing. Thank you, DC Woodworking. It's Polish, yeah. Isn't the name of your currency zloty? Or zloty? Or am I missing something? Right, so John Smith for $10 says, the biggest pushback I get from Orthodox is that they use traditional church fathers' interpretations, and I don't. Therefore, not sola scriptura, but also traditions of church fathers. Am I confused? Right. So when we talk about traditional church fathers, we're talking about the continuity of the church. right? Things didn't end with the apostles. There are those who would say, they don't call it a slumber, they call it something like the church basically was extinguished, more or less. There may have been some remnants, but it was basically gone, subsumed either by like the Roman Empire or whatever those would say, and then only came back basically with the Reformation. This seems to go against the promise of the gates of hell not prevailing against the church. But when we say you should follow traditional church fathers, it's because there's an established continuity. Church blackout, yes, thank you, Rachel. So we can read the apostolic fathers, which is basically the first generation after the apostles, the direct disciples of the apostles, and maybe their own disciples. So we are 2 generations of disciples away from the apostles themselves. We're talking about St. Ignatius of Antioch, St. Polycarp, then we have St. Polycarp's student, St. Irenaeus of Lyon, etc. And then we have this continuity. We have plenty of saints in the early church, pre-Nicene saints. Then we have the ecumenical councils. Obviously, with the Edict of Milan in 313, the church is now legalized, so to speak. So people can gather more freely, discuss things more freely. Then you have this standardization of terminology starting to occur. This is the point of the creed produced at Nicaea and later on expanded on in Constantinople in 381. So they didn't invent new things. They asserted what was already taught, not just what we would say the scriptures teach, but also by the pre-Nicene fathers. But now we have a specific terminology to deal with it, right? And this terminology gets adopted and then used later on, and so and so. So you have this living line, as Christ promised, of the church, which grants us a lot of context, a lot of insight, both historical, theological, spiritual, etc. And the problem with the sola scriptura view, as I mentioned earlier, if we're going to have different understandings of worship, and I would say ours is biblical, the Protestant one is indistinguishable from what we would call veneration, which is basically, if you praise something, then you're worshipping it, basically. If you pray to someone, you're worshipping them, basically, which is a completely unbiblical point. But sola scriptura will then just reinforce by saying, well, this verse says this, and we say, yeah, but if you read it in the context of its time. I talked about justice. I did a stream on justice if you want to look at that. I still have to do one about the idea of faith. Faith wasn't understood as how we use it today, as a mental assent to a proposition. It wasn't like saying yes to a prompt. It is about saying, it is about living a life consistent with those beliefs. So it is encapsulated within the faith, the idea of faithfulness. Christ says this quite a bit. He says that we should be judged by our works, by the way. He says, not all who call me Lord, Lord shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but those who do the will of the Father. One of my favorite parables to bring up, like the master leaving his servants with the talents, right? And then the first to double it, the last one who receives the least and should double the least doesn't. He just buries it, basically. And the first two are called good and faithful servants and can enter the kingdom. The one who isn't included in that. And there is no discrepancy for us between that and the verses of St. Paul that are being mentioned, because the disambiguation of St. Paul between faith and works isn't the idea of mental activity versus physical activity. It is the idea of faith, which is living a life of faith, which includes believing things, And by the way, we can be wrong on certain aspects as long as we are trying our best. That is what God is going to judge, our hearts, not our ability to understand extremely nuanced theology. Apart from works, which is how the pagans thought. The pagans would think, I'm going to do X for this god to strike some type of deal. Oh, it's Aphrodite. Well, I really fancy this girl. Or, I don't know, I want my wife to get pregnant or something. So you try to do something to encourage this deity to do their, wily crafts and get you a certain outcome, whether it be love, war, statesmanship, dealing away with the plague, good weather for a good harvest, etc., etc. This is what we what St. Paul is disambiguating. It was the faithfulness of Abraham to follow God's request. It's not the works, because he didn't say, hey, God, want me to sacrifice this kid for you? No. And this is how it is also compatible with James 2, because historically, this is how people thought of faith. I hope that helps. Damn, Rachel beat me to it. Fair enough, Christopher Scott. Thank you for the $5 super chat. John Smith, for an additional $10, says, even Calvinists have claims to early church fathers, 500 AD, but I believe they're clearly wrong. So why is an early church father better at interpreting than me if I interpret exegetically? All right. I hope people understand this is basically within the context of this stream and what we were talking about earlier. We're trying to be consistent, and that's why we're having this discussion. Sorry, I need to take another swig. The etymology is very helpful to find the best meaning. Yes, I may talk about etymology a bit later on, but yes, the term pistis, which is the Greek term, fide being the Latin one, but the New Testament is written in Greek. So pistis is, you can read about it. It is a whole thing. It's not merely mental. So Calvinists don't have claims to early church fathers. They have some claims to certain positions held by St. Augustine, but these were never fully recognized by the church. The problem with St. Augustine is he was in a very bad spot. So he starts, for example, the book on the Trinity. No one should be writing about this, but I'm trying to guide my flock. People need some explanation, right? He is very reserved, but feels like he has a pastoral duty to explain things the best he can. Certain things he did wonderfully. Others haven't been confirmed by the rest of the church. So, as I said, it doesn't mean that every church father is correct about everything. But these things play out in the church. The Holy Spirit is alive and well. Thank him very much. So these errors, like a predeterminist understanding, is going to come from someone who is a convert in a collapsing part of the empire, desperately trying to keep things alive. The City of God was written because people were thinking about reverting back to paganism, because when we were pagan, everything was going great. Look at us now. The barbarians are closing in on us, etc. So he wrote that as a response to that event. A lot of things quoted by Protestants, not all manner of Protestants, not just Calvinists, are going to be basically just redoing the thing they do with the scripture. They will, if they see faith as mental assent to a proposition, they're going to read that in the New Testament and in the church fathers. I've known plenty of people. I feel horrible for making you pay so much, so I'm trying to catch these. I've known plenty of saved people by their fruits who prefer Lutheran or Orthodoxy because the structure and reverence they focus on, because God is owed that. Right. So, right. Just let me check on this super chat. G-Zorro, or Xoro, if you would, for 15 British pounds. Thank you very much. Says, what's your opinion on the current Serbian government and also the whole lithium debate that is currently going on in Serbia? Sorry for the unrelated question. I talked about this for a bit the last time. I don't like this government, but the opposition isn't any better. They are in certain respects worse in other respects. So democracy is a farce in any case. So it's not like I'm massively concerned. Secondly, we're a country friendly to Russia, surrounded by NATO members. We were already bombed by NATO in 1999, which I remember well, even though I was 5 years old. So we don't have much choice. We are pressured all the time for all sorts of things, and we can't even choose the West cleanly. The people won't, anyways. The populace is very pro-Russian, but on the other side, like Russia has massive interest and holdings in Serbia, so cutting them off is basically also death. But they're also pathetic, they're incredibly corrupt, and they're all retarded, especially because our president, who's an intelligent man, corrupt and horrible man, but an intelligent man, has surrounded himself with idiots because he wants no one to challenge him. So it's an embarrassment after embarrassment, just like what you would expect. The lithium, it's Rio Tinto. I haven't checked whether they're purely Australian or American-Australian company who want to dig lithium. A lot of people are against it because we don't expect them to follow procedures, and the extraction of lithium itself is pretty dirty on its own, I mean, as a process. So a lot of people are against it, and I think they would just poison everything, because do people think if they would do it in Africa or somewhere else where they can find lithium, they won't do it here? Are we actually going to fall for the idea that this is pro-white people? They didn't mind dropping depleted uranium munitions on us in '99, the Westerners, I mean. So why would they care about this? So then, which church fathers do I listen to? So the church is a corpus, it is a body. And we have things determined in terms of councils and in terms of people who have been lifted up for these purposes. Which church fathers should you listen to? I don't know how to answer that. If they're a church father, they're considered a church father. In the Orthodox Church, we hold them up as someone you should read and study, because this is what we believe the Holy Spirit has done over time. These things don't happen immediately. We can't keep this legalistic perspective where things happen at basically the snap of a finger. I don't know what topics would you like to read about, right? We have St. Irenaeus, we have St. Augustine talking about certain types of heresies, we have all types of other heresies being addressed by other church fathers. If you want to read about the Trinity, right, St. Athanasius the Great is one of the greatest defenders of the Trinity against the heresy of Arianism, because you can also take the same questioning from Arians. You had them pretty dominant in one part of history. Ultimately, that fell. And this is something we should expect. So the gates of hell prevailing against the church won't happen, but there are going to be sways in certain directions, as has been the case in the Old Testament. So it won't be a full destruction, but we have absolutely no promise of things going well and swimmingly. So why does Orthodoxy include books the Jews didn't include in their canon? Listen, John Smith, you have a very Protestant understanding of the term canon. Canon, what Protestants mean, canon is something we can say is verifiably the word of God, and then apocrypha are things that are sort of on the side that you can read. someone suggested something to the best way to learn what these fathers actually said instead of believing what people are claiming they said. Yes. You can find resources online. You can just find these books for free. Obviously, if you like physical copies, buy physical copies. But you can just type in Church Father collection English or something. I think there's a Catholic one. This is like New Advent or something. And you have these early church fathers listed, and you can read what they wrote. The non-canonical Gospels, there are no such things, because the Gospels that are so-called, Gospel accounts, not Gospels, there's one Gospel, are defunct. You have, even linguistically, as forgeries tend to fall apart, is linguistically, I believe donation of Constantine contained the term fief, which is which is a Frankish feudal term. So having an early 4th century Byzantine or Roman emperor using a term that belongs to the Frankish system is going to show you that this isn't a legitimate document, much like with the other Gospels. So you have plenty of content on why these non-canonical Gospels are wrong. And there's an Ethiopian Orthodox Bible which has the apocrypha. Why don't Western Orthodox use these books or their Bible, or do they? I'm new to Orthodox. Okay, Chronic Abundance Nikolaos. That's quite a Greek name for someone who's new to Orthodoxy. I'm joking. Right, so I said canon. Let me finish up that point. I'm going to have to change basically the name of the stream now. So it's not a difference. Sorry. Someone is laying into the car, and I got flashbacks from the air sirens. I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully not. So canon doesn't mean good and proper and good for God, or approved as the word of God. And apocryphal can be ignored, but it's nice to read about, or you can get something maybe out of it. No, canonical, canon is basically like a measurement. So canonical is what is read in the churches. So if you would go to a church, you are going to be hearing from these books. You have to remember the vast majority of people were illiterate. So when you go to church, people would be reading from this. Apocryphal means, technically means hidden, but it is used as private, right? So the canonical and apocryphal is, in this context, better translated as public versus private. So private in the sense that you would have, these would be read by bishops and clergy and stuff, because they have to study it, and isn't seen as something that can easily be understood and proclaimed. This is, I'm massively oversimplifying this, obviously. Yes, Nikolaos. So it's not the distinction that is held by Protestants. So you mentioned the Ethiopians, right? They've got Enoch, they've got Jubilees. Both are considered apocryphal for the Orthodox. We technically don't have a codified Old Testament collection of books, or canon, if you will, but that would be a misnomer in a certain sense. But we still read them. And if you say the Jews even didn't use them, the Qumran community, I believe that Jubilees was the most copied book after Genesis. and the number of copies in the ancient world would correspond to what was most often used, because copying things was pretty bloody expensive, even in that part of the world, right? Much more expensive, for example, in Europe, where you can't have papyrus and stuff, too humid, but it was still extremely expensive. But it's wrong to say, I know that there are people who have this certain view, well, they had these books here, technically would be scrolls, and this they didn't. It's because you're reading a very Protestant understanding of canonicity and apocrypha into the Old Testament. There just is no such thing. So let me catch up with the chat a bit. We have Doomadoxy here. Hello, Albanian. Yes, that's where I begin. Is why is this book considered heresy before I read them with a grain of salt? Because it's like poems and had expanded on a story, like Fall of Angels and Demons, Heavenly War. It was, oops, I switched into a different chat. Of Angels and Demons, Heavenly War before man. Why do you think it's just before man? Enoch is there. You know? When the watchers are being punished. Thanks for noticing, lol, all the Greek in the name very intentional. It means just abundance in time and the victory for the people. Yeah. Although that K at the beginning, you have to write it with a CH. That's how the Chi is adopted by the Romans. Thanks for the shout out. I don't know if you mean for calling an Albanian or for sharing your video. Did you get my Telegram message? I have an idea of something we can do. I didn't receive a notification, so I'll check it out after the stream. Yeah, some books don't include the Book of Enoch. Right, because people had concerns about it, and they're not part of the public lectionary. That doesn't mean people weren't allowed to know stuff from them. It's again something that is not read out loud in a church. You can still have. I believe Father Stephen DeYoung is doing a course on the Book of Enoch in Orthodoxy. Posh is theological thinker. He has had debates in the past. Some of the Crucible has good combos with DPA, Jim Bob, and others. Thank you, Angel Berber, for the shout out. So the main thing to abandon is legalism and clean lines. That's not how history works. That's especially not in ye olden days. I mostly study languages, so I can assure you that 100 years can be massive for the changing of a language. In modern times, we've become too accustomed to everyone having standardized like English. But this is why Americans could be very shocked to go to Europe and go from Bavaria to Berlin and people talk almost like a different language. Because in historical places, right, America is more obviously historical. Everything is to an extent, but is this place that was much more curated in its creation than the old continent would be. So things develop, these dialects can be very sharp in a very small country, including like in Serbia. I say I'm from southern Serbia. I can speak Serbian in a way that people, 100 kilometers north would have a problem understanding. Yes, I understand it's one of the favorite things to read because it's fun, oh, angels and demons and people are beating. Die Sprache ändert sich. Yes. Alhamdulillah. That would explain a lot, by the way. It would explain the state of Islam. It would explain the state of Hezbollah right now if you've been following the goings on. So, right, I hope I've addressed this. to an extent. Again, it's not the main topic I'm here to discuss, but I hope it helps people out. Father Stephen is also host of Lord of Spirits podcast. He is exploring a lot of Enochian stuff and more. Yes, he is also the host of the whole Council of God. That's his Bible study on ancient faith, although you have a lot on YouTube as well before he switched there. Okay, John Smith says, thank you. You're very welcome. I hope that puts some insight. I understand. I'm not going to spend like a less than 2 hour stream and shift your mind completely. No, but I'm trying to give you things to consider, our angle, and certain practical problems that arise from this idea of perspicuity of scriptures, because even Protestantism isn't unified on interpretation. So you can say, well, yes, but we do it right, the others are misguided. Well, then perspicuity doesn't really mean much, does it? If you can still misinterpret the perspicuous, then it's not much of perspicuity to begin with. Yes, it is a simplistic view, but simplistic views are pretty enticing in a lot of ways. I think people say Christianity is simple. It's just not easy. Yeah. So back to the original topic. If we have the idea of, I got thrown. I really should stop writing things down. Christ, I keep forgetting. Right, I said I was watching a video by actual justice warrior Sean Fitzgerald. I appreciate his takes. Obviously, he's a bit of a neocon, a bit of a Republican, normie. But there it is. But what about charity? We call it almsgiving. Slow boy whiteboard. Yeah, a bit of a neocon. But, I said I listen to some leftists, I listen to some libertarians. I try to have input from people I believe are at least honest. Never heard of him. It's fine. He's a fun guy to listen to. But just today, I believe, or yesterday, he posted a video, but I watched it before going live. He talks about a trans murderer is being sent to a female prison. Really? Are we going to really send a murderer to a women's prison? And then I say, well, this is something you should have thought about before you accepted someone like Blair White as a woman. So we're going to revoke gender status based on that. Now, just to be clear, all that gender nonsense is nonsense. But if you're going to accept people you like, if you're going to accept someone who is for lower taxes and more guns, yeehaw, right? A typical woman's political opinion, by the way. Right, then we can. So if you like them, they can switch their gender, but if they're murderers, they can't. That's inconsistent. That means you either didn't believe it in the first place, which is, I believe, the case. I believe most people don't actually believe it. They're just trying to either be nice or trying to keep their heads down, whatever it is. I don't buy it for a moment. But that is what you have to deal with. And I'd like to connect this to someone else I listen to but disagree with on a lot, which is Jimmy Dore, who went to, I believe, the DNC and met someone who represents some communist, not party, but whatever it is. It's communist, so it's some type of rubbish. And he starts talking to this person and then was shocked that this person wants to nationalize the S&P 500 companies. So why would you be talking about this? He was shocked that communists want to nationalize the means of production and distribution and exchange of goods and services. So saying just the S&P 500, that's pretty bloody, reserved for socialism, right? Communists practice socialism. I'm not equating the two. I'm well aware that they're not the same thing. But socialism, that stage in Marxist idea of progression of society, like you nationalize the means of production, distribution, and exchange of goods and services. Why would you be shocked by this? You're a leftist. He has Marxists all the time on his show, and yet he has no idea what it is. He thinks it's about, having welfare, having days off, having paid maternity leave. That can be, historically, one of the main maxims of communism is work as much as you can, take only as much as you need. Which, if you said to with people with a hammer and sickle in their bio or their name or something, they think you were some capitalist, rapacious industrialist. But this was commonplace in classical Marxism. Now, they obviously turned it all even more bourgeois. I think it's pretty bourgeois, but they turned it even more bourgeois and gay, and then they don't even recognize the classics. And this is the point. People don't explore this. Jimmy Dore does at least seem honest. Yes, that's why I say I can watch him as a leftist. But because I don't believe he's lying to me. I don't believe he's a grifter, because he has changed things on that make him pretty unpopular among his circles. So that's fine. That's how they sell communism, and then they are shocked when there is the first sacrifice for the greater good. Right, I'm from a former communist country, right? My parents, instead of philosophy, had Marxism in class. Who's going to eat all this philosophy nonsense? Well, Marx figured it all out. But to that point, he doesn't believe it because he has this comprehensive understanding of Marxism or socialism or communism, the different flavors that have developed in real life as they're being implemented. He only has this vague notion that it's about helping the working class. It's about destroying the class system, not about helping one of the classes. That's too partial, and he is the first to quote Malcolm X, and what was it, like the slow drip of incrementalism, whatever it is, right? And then he is basically an incrementalist. If you were to ask a proper, Marxist, his increments are simply larger. He's not going, in centimeters. He's going in inches. So yeah, that's another thing. I believe I had an additional example I wanted to discuss. When we're going to balkanize Australia, what all the three inhabitable percents of it, which are still pretty deadly, but at least livable. No, give it back to the Aboriginals. They can have it. I don't want it. As long as we also get rid of Rio Tinto. Yeah, Jimmy Dore is idealistic. So many commentators that we see that are honest are very idealistic, because it is a very human thing. I do plan a stream on rehumanizing thinking, because they don't think about humans as humans. They think of them as algorithms. And I don't mean to attribute any malintent or something. It's simply that they feel it's a failure to compute, as opposed to, a failure to recognize on their part that they're dealing with human beings. So Jimmy will talk about how, oh, we're dealing with all the cultural leftism because they've abandoned economic leftism, right? And no one cares about cultural leftism. Lots of people care about the culture. Most people inhabit the culture. He will endlessly talk about what's happening in Gaza. Did he talk about Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan and Turkey genociding, ethnically cleansing the Armenians? No. Does he talk about what's happening in Sudan, or the Muslims, what they're doing to the Christians in Nigeria and in Ethiopia? No, because it's not in vogue. It's not fun. But if you're a human being and this is what you know about, this is what you're going to focus on. I don't expect him to go and Google current conflicts and whom I should side with today. No, that's not human thinking. Human thinking is he's aware of this. Obviously, can make a massive point about, well, I'm American, so my country is supporting the side I believe to be ethnically cleansing the other, so I'm against it, so on and so forth. That's very human. But if you read polling, most people are concerned about immigration and the economy. That's a massive thing for people. That's what they live with. No one has this idea, except the idealists. No one has the idea that they're saving the world. They just want to live their lives. Most people aren't particularly political. They go along with the inertia of the current sociocultural iteration of the place they live in. That's why you have these large shifts in opinion all the time, allegedly, because people don't get a lot from academic work, as far as, let's say, changing the opinions on homosexuality. Most people didn't change their views on homosexuality because they were reading like philosophical debates. They got it from Hollywood. They got it from sitcoms. This has and all types of like music stars and whatever. That is what impacted them, because that's a human lived experience. But no one wants to talk about it. That is why culture is so important. The culture is going to dictate how people react to even the political. And that's a very concerning thing, but that's why you mustn't abandon it. Right. Did you talk about Diego Garcia? I don't know. Old Zealand. Have you heard the Rama Rama song about the Aboriginals? I may have, but because I hear a lot of songs, I just don't remember them by their name. I hear them in memes and stuff. Posh Redneck, if someone viewed you as living out your life as a saint in an extraordinary way, would you be comfortable with people pausing the stream and kissing their monitor? No. I would not be comfortable. I'm a bit autistic, so I don't particularly like being touched. Obviously, they wouldn't be directly touching me, but I'm saying I wouldn't be comfortable even if that were the case. And as you see, I'm drinking and smoking right now, so not exactly the exemplar of self-discipline. Yeah, like here and there. Then there's Rob Knorr and Jim Bob. So it's been great. Lol, it gives me something to do with Andrew, whatever isn't on. Yeah, Jim Bob cranks out a lot of content. I honestly have no idea how he gets the time to do all the things he does, because it seems you can always reach him, like in private messages, and he keeps drawing things, and he keeps researching things, and he keeps streaming. It's like, do you somehow get like 29 hours in a day or something? Which is me coping for being lazy. Why don't you debate Vorsh? Andrew wanted to set that up, but I believe he was blacklisted by Vorsh. So yeah. He's also a git. Giddy up. Woo! I'm so proud of myself for that one. People were bullying me in the comments of the last stream that I laugh at my jokes too much. But trust me, my jokes surprise me quite a bit. Fell asleep to Posh's voice post-church nap. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Someone once said I should narrate children's books, and I thought, why do they sleep too much? Okay. Oh, you found out about Jim Bob, DPH, Jedi, Posh, and Sam Shamoon through Andrew. Right. This is what Andrew also says. Why he keeps interacting with the whatever podcast. Like, people are going to need more than just, talking about how bloody awful feminism is. There needs to be a comprehensive worldview, which is also what I'm talking about here. Like, we can't have these halfway. Being angry at the state of modern women isn't conducive to a proper life. But you find other things through Andrew, like even other topics he covers. And then obviously Jay has so many areas he covers that it's absolutely outstanding. And Jim Bob and DPH, I sometimes get myself to stream, which is not the most common occurrence in the world, but yeah. So happy to have you here, and happy to see that Andrew isn't dealing with that for nothing. It's actually helping people. I mean, honestly, it's been good to watch like the chill stream now and his appearance on Timcast. I just can't watch his appearances on whatever. I managed to get through one entire one, and the rest I bail in about 20 minutes. I'll just watch a couple of highlights. I can't. I just can't bloody do it. G Zorro for an additional 10 British pounds. Thank you. Says, do you think Serbia should return back to its monarchical government? Heard you said one of them were based, or carry on with democracy. I'm a monarchist, so yes, first of all. But I don't think it's that easy. Like, you're not just going to have a single solution for something. There is no singular point of failure in the world order as we live it. Actually, to be honest, there never was a singular point of failure in any system. It's just that things accumulate, and then people start noticing things are wrong, and then things have weakened so much that it seems like there's a huge critical thing to press on, and everything collapses. It's not like that. It's not like ANCAP, just remove the government and there you go. Like, the first thing that will happen is criminals are going to organize and start pushing people around. But yeah. Let's read my fellow countryman, Đorđe Dimitrijević, who says, moje verovanje je da sam izgubio struju gde sam ja, tako pazi se da ne nestane kod tebe. Oh, good Lord. So he's telling me he lost power and it's possible for it to happen here. Oh yeah, it's possible for it to happen here. It's just a bloody joke. But if I just disappear for no reason in the next 20 minutes before I send you over to DPH, yeah. An additional fellow Serb says, nikad nisam vidio mladog monarhistu. Znaš, čuo sam da postoje, ali nikad to nisam vidio. He says, I've never seen a young monarchist. I've heard that they existed, but I never saw one. Yeah, I had like a socialist phase when I was between 12 and 15. And because lots of new people are here, I have to say I did a speed run of, socialist at 16. conservative at 30. I finished back up not just conservative, but monarchist, traditionalist at 15. So make Serbia great again. Oh God, we'd start fighting each other. That's what we do. Whenever things go too well, we're like, things are going too well. Are you planning something? Right. Who had a strong opposition to the veneration of the saints? Oh, Christ. Okay, I can't get into socialist phase heretic. Yeah, I did have an atheist phase. I wasn't raised. Okay, I'll get another beer. Be right back. St. John Chrysostom was against it. I'm back. People always get me like souvenirs. They get me these bottle openers. This one is from Germany. So if you ever want to meet me and gain my good favors, buy me a bottle opener. And then I will say, well, I didn't want to drink, but now I have to test it out. I'm not familiar with this Fani. If you have something I should look up, hit me up and I'll happily read through it. Thought on Srpska akcija and Dodik? I mean, I'm glad they're more nationalistic and stuff, especially over there. But I didn't trust politicians. I keep saying I'm a monarchist because the idea is to have a father of the nation. The idea of democracy is to have, because the land is your mother, right? And then this is your father. But the idea is in democracy, your mother just keeps changing boyfriends every couple of years. So yeah. How can you go about electing, determining a king in a potential monarchy? That's too big of a topic. Kashi. Mud. For $5, thank you, Mud. Is that a fridge? I honestly just assume you mixed the booze from some sort of rare Albania beer weasel. We say frigider. So yeah, again, Tesla was a Serb. You wouldn't have alternating current without us. You'd have Edison. And who would have electrocuted that elephant to prove how dangerous AC is? Have you thought about it, Mud? Have you? Right. It's not just tyranny of the masses. People are so bloody confused by democracy because they approach it with the idea of, oh, you need an educated electorate. You're not going to get it. Like, again, not because people are stupid. You can have them. You have plenty of nations that are above 100 IQ on average. It's not about that. It's that people don't care. You can't just keep bullying people into trying to care. And you see, this is why everyone is going so bloody mad. Everything needs to be scandalous and oh, it's the end of the world. You need to keep bringing up the temperature, and then nothing is stable anymore. And still, most people will not care. So that's why things keep failing. Cheers. Tesla was super into milk and crackers. Allegedly, he had a phobia of either peaches or apricots. Okay, so George Dimitrievich here quotes St. Justin Popovich, says, prvi demokrat je bio đavo, the first Democrat was the devil. What do you make of all the travel videos in Serbia? Novi Sad looks amazing. I stand firm in my belief that traveling was invented by women as a means of torture. But if for some inexplicable masochistic reason you like to travel, it's fun. It's fun here. People tend to be very generous, very welcoming. We're very big on the idea of welcoming and sharing stuff, giving people food and drink and so on. So, and if you contrast this with, I'm not sure how prevalent this way of thinking is now, but we used to be seen as this genocidal maniacs. And then people go thinking, oh, this is going to be dangerous, and it's just fine, It's having low expectations are even more exceeded. So, yeah. Your family were commies. Oof. Sad. I used to get very travel sick when I was young. And the idea, I was at least sold as a very young boy, that if you sing, it helps you like travel. So when we would have family trips, I was too young to travel alone, like on a bus or something. So my father taught me a lot of like nationalist songs. So that's fun. God help us. Had I been, by the grace of God, I was not raised in a communist country, although I do know communist songs. I know a lot of songs like from the IRA and stuff. I love that type of music. On the same topic of monarchy, if you have any knowledge about your neighbors, what do you think about a renaissance of monarchy in Romania? Romania really had it rough in the communist period, rougher than we did. But I think if you switch to a monarchy, in 20 years, most people would support it, even if they don't now. That's what happens. Because most people are disinterested. Oh, is this what we're doing now? Okay. Going on. Posh singing Chetnik songs and Vera Vechna, Vera Slavna, Vera Nash. On car ride sounds fun. Yeah, it was. Except it only worked partially. So I was still sick. So it was like I was hungover and singing. Communism affected my family greatly and their mentality. My great-grandmother was reading the Bible in secret because they would have killed her in Albania. Yeah, you also had it rougher than we did. But we share I think in Albania, beards were specifically illegal. In Serbia, or Yugoslavia at the time, they weren't illegal, but you could be brought in for questioning. Because it is potentially a sign of being a monarchist, because the Chetniks grew out their beards as a sign of mourning for the king being gone, and also the clergy are bearded. Now, yeah, so yes, they were outright illegal. There's a singer, now late singer, a Serb called, oh goodness, I'm blanking. I switched to English and now I can't remember his name. Cune Gojkovic. And he was a bit rotund. So as he got quite a bit fat, he was advised to grow like a goatee. And in one of those strange moments, he grew a goatee that made him look like a proper gentleman. Goatees we associate with with rednecks, like country music, but he grew like a longer one, a proper one, and he was brought in for questioning. So, beard, huh? Is there anything else we should know? Yeah, Peter the Great, who wasn't particularly great, also banned it. Well, that's because he was like a simp for the West. Good administrator, but a horrible, horrible example of a monarch. Originally, the Chetniks are ultimately inspired by Haiduks, and they wore only moustaches in order to separate themselves from Mohammedans, because in Islam you were to cut the moustache. Yeah. The Turks didn't really follow that. Like Sunnis specifically are supposed to trim a moustache and have a beard. I just imagine, like the Arabs going to them like, oh, Sultan, you shouldn't have a moustache. And, like, we conquered you. If you tell me what I should wear or not, I will have your entire family displayed in front of your house. Right, explain your hangover. I haven't got a hangover. I said back then I would still get sick from like within the car. And it was a Yugo. So I think if you shoved your head into a tanker of petrol, it would smell less like petrol than within a Yugo. So I would get sick and I would sound like I was singing hungover, not that I'm right now in that state. Yeah, I'm wearing this moustache just to protest Sunni Islam. Curse the Turks. The only, we have an area of Serbia that has lots of Muslims in it. Like, the only thing they follow is just not eating pork. That's it. That's Islam for them. Oh, Christ. A few Central Asian countries will stop people with beards at border crossings, with some cases forcefully shaving. What on earth could be in any Central Asian country worth getting forcefully having your moustache shorn over? Are they going to start another horde or something? What they do in Central Asia? That's not going to work anymore. Right. Oh, the Amish wear a beard with no moustache. I know that. Something to do with conscription. I never knew, and I never cared about it, but I never knew why they did that. There's nothing in the Bible you'd find it. But if it's something with conscription, you have these pacifist groups. So yeah. What a successful Mongolian horde looks like nowadays. It looks like having your country filled with Chinese industrial waste. That's what Mongolian hordes. So maybe if it reaches the graveyards or something, maybe we get some type of resurrected, they get additional buffs for poison damage or something. Outside of that, yeah, Mongolia are not doing well. If you don't have a beard, you're a woman. Listen, Doomadoxy, I know my facial hair is a crime against humanity, but you're not much better. So. What about women with moustaches? I don't know, ask Doomadoxy. Most of the Mongols were Caucasian Tatars. I don't know. Saying most is a difficult thing to say. I'm back to bullying Doomadoxy, and he can't even respond live right now, so that's epic. I am two of you tall. Yeah, you keep the Albanians in Kosovo keep ruining like Serbia's height, standard height scores, because like in Albania you're like 5'5". Are you a basketball center foot? Very good, very good. 5 minutes to Cotel. Okay, let me put myself. Oh, while we still have time, how do I rate someone? How tall are you, Posh? I'm 185 centimeters, so 6'1". Hospitals smell weird. Well, back in the day, they would have smelled like incense. All right, the gypsies too. Bloody hell. Damn, those cursed Dutch. We're getting nerfed by these people. Kosovars are a mix between Turkish and degenerate. Listen, Dumadoxy, I make fun of Albanians, but for you to call your own people that is just. Mongoloids were one of the 3 Tatar tribes that compose what we call the Mongolians. I'm not going to get into it because I don't know enough. So, je sais. Je sais. You would have the S is double, so it would be je sais. Marasco. Right. So, how do I raid people? Please, before I don't want to wait until he goes live. So, but I know I have people here who are competent at actually streaming, unlike myself. I won't even say unlike my good self, because I'm so humble. The euro destroyed Ireland. Yeah, the euro is a mess. Why did everyone just accept the Deutschmark? The Germans, being Germans, kept everything under wraps. It was the most stable currency in the world. I mean, not not after the First World War, but you know what I mean, like later on. Whiskey destroyed Ireland. No, it was destroyed by being full of Irishmen. Yeah, they hate Germany. Okay. You had future tech before whiskey. Is that the Family Guy joke? Like flying cars and everything. Oh, look what... I can't remember the name, but I was just improvising. Look what Patty O'Malley made in his basement. They start drinking, start fighting each other. Europe should adopt the Serbian dinar. Euro is the daughter of shekel. That's a great one. Except the shekel should be a weight of silver. Remote viewing, is it demonic or related to the Holy Spirit? What's going on? I mean, the Holy Spirit can do anything, but people who pursue such things don't pursue it because they want the help of the Holy Spirit. They do it because and they interact with the demonic. So yeah, don't seek out powers. God knows if granting you some ability, let's call it that for the sake of simplicity, if it would help you or the people around you. So, and the biggest indicator that should happen is that you don't want such things, that you just want to help people with the most menial of tasks. And then, even then, maybe not. So we don't seek some powers to be some sort of, crypto Simon Magus's. Is a TV with a remote, is that demonic? Well, yeah, obviously. Yeah, the Irish voted no on the Lisbon Treaty. So that's the democracy of the European Union. You vote yes or no, and you will be asked again if you chose the wrong one. No one is telling me how to do the raid, so oof. That's not good. This has not been moved. Do I have to Google it? Don't make me Google stuff. Christ. I told you? You told me? Oh, goodness. Oh, he's going live now. No, I don't know how to do it. Last time someone had to tell me how to allow to be raided. Why do you think I knew how to raid? Ask the Vikings how to raid. Yeah. Posh Redneck does not send raids, he sends Vikings. And just to be clear, the noun is Vikinger. We're stuck here, Posh. Christ, I have to Google it. Luckily, DPH has this initial timer. How to raid on YouTube. Christ. Vikinger. Fun fact, ancient Chinese emperors also had blonde hair and Nordic features. I'm very suspect of such claims. Ask the Vikings how to raid. Live stream. Premiere. What on earth? Features sending subscribers, no community guidelines, right? Oh, I need to set up my Premiere before setting up my live stream. Right. So, no. I have not done the preparations, it seems. Illyrian King, Doomadoxy. So, right. Click on the link posted by Dr. Crispy Johnson. Go to Cotel. I wasn't expecting to have a large crowd today, so thank you for being here. Thank you, Andrew, for initiating the raid. So I am sending you over actively. Go, don't listen to me. I won't be singing anything. I promise singing on a Tuesday, both the Austrian thing and the I keep forgetting to do the bloody Austrian thing and the Irish thing. So yeah. So leave while you're still here. And when I see the numbers drop off, I'll close down the stream. I just want to have the link there. I see you, Panchuchin. Can't wait for you to sing. Yeah. Oh, Chaz, someone asked we do a rendition of the Foggy Dew. And I need to find the sample he sent me, and we'll do it and use it somehow. Posh, why does EMJ pronounce logos? I explained that at some point. It's not low gas. It's this thing. He's from Massachusetts, I believe. So there's a logos, like when you say Mars. You're not saying Mars, saying Mars. It's like this thing between an A and an O. And he emphasizes the first one, logos. Right. Most people are still here, so I don't know what to do. And okay, I don't want to shoo you away because you were generous, you were a good audience and stuff. Fun, interesting stream. Thanks, Bosch. Thank you, David Atlas. Zimmerman L says, definitely subscribing, great content. Thank you. Thank you, Zimmerman. Christopher Scott for $2 says, always a pleasure listening to you. I learn a lot. glory to God for all things. I'm happy to be of use to people. It's a good feeling to know you're helping people not have to torturously do research because they don't know where to start. At least here, I try to expand things and branch them out into other topics so people have this lifeline. Again, people are still here. I'm afraid that if I close it off, people are just going to be stuck. But I definitely want you to go over to Cotel's stream. I promise I won't do anything interesting. Chaz is protesting, leaving. If you protest leaving, Chaz, you are a Protestant. And you know what Lutheranism did to your country. You want to be a Lutheran, Chaz? Because I'm also interested in the topic that Cotel is going to be covering, but I won't be able to watch it live because it's midnight here, and so I'll wait for it to be up tomorrow. Listen, practice some guitar and stuff. Drapes have an interesting pattern, yes. Floral patterns are pretty much the common feature here. Shout at them to go. I can't. That'd be wrong with me. But I can be passive aggressive. The manliest thing to do. You have a split screen. Nišle prokupčanin. It's prokuplje. Bate. We don't say bate. We do say be. Good night, Pravoslavicon. Okay, it's finally starting to bleed off. I was about to say I can play you out with music, and then that would actually make things worse. Posh, if you go and say hi in Cotel's chat, I will go. Oh, God damn it. I'm being blackmailed by my own people. This is why I'm for absolute monarchy. Oh, Christ, I got 120 subscribers off of this. Thank you, everyone. Okay, he's starting very soon. I want people to come here. If you don't, you're Albanian. There you go. Okay.
All right. Welcome back, ladies.
I'll make you listen to his audio. Okay, now seriously, everyone, go over there. I'm giving you like a 10-second countdown, hoping everyone leaves, and I'm closing off. The negotiations have failed. So let's go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. Good night. God bless you. And go over to Cotel.